Hey, what's up guys? My name is Aiden and welcome to this week's screencast. So the Angular Material team recently announced that they've gone live with the alpha releases, so I figured why not take a look at what they've accomplished for the first alpha release. And as you may know, I've done a Pluralsight course on Angular Material for Angular 1, but now let's take a look at the Angular 2 components. And I'm going to try to use this in my ng2 play repo, which you can get at the following URL. And you can find the Material 2 source code on their GitHub page on the following URL. And we also have the changelog here. And we can see that they have 6 components. So I pretty common get the question like, how do you know what to type? I actually don't. So what I do, I read the documents, and they should be enough for any developer to get started. So I'm going to try to figure out how to integrate these components into my app by simply looking at the GitHub repo, and hopefully they've provided us with samples on how to use these components. So as we can see here, we have MD button and MD checkbox, and I'm using buttons along with checkbox, so why not try to integrate these two components into my app to begin with, and then we'll see how much time we have and if we'll try to integrate other components or if we leave that for another screencast. So if we hit their main repo here, the first thing I want to find out is how to install Angular 2 Material. And it looks like we're going to need to install it component by component. So we're going to need the core library and then provide the component names that we want to use. And down here it says if you're using System.js as your module loader, we're going to load the components like this. And we are using System.js, even though I'm not that fond of it. So let's open up our command prompt. And before we actually do something, let's just make sure that our app works. Let's have the developer console out. So we can enter stuff and we can check them and we can remove them. So we're going to try to replace two components here. We're going to try to replace this button along with this checkbox with the ng2 material components. All right, so let's get started. So we can actually take this line as is. We're going to want a checkbox. So let's kill our gulp process and whoops, didn't copy paste. But let's also get, let's see what the name was. The MD button, right? So we're gonna install core, checkbox, and the button. And we'll also save and update our package.json file. So now let's take a look in our folder structure, and we should be able to find Angular 2 Material along with 3 components. So let's also copy paste the part where we try to load our components with the System.js. So we're just gonna copy paste this. So I really don't like this syntax, but let's just go with it. And we want the checkbox along with the button. It's probably called button.js. Let's just make sure that that's true. Right, it is. And now let's see here if they provide some kind of sample. They don't here on the main page, but let's actually visit the changelog and see if we can see how to use them. So now we can see that we should be able to use these components in the following manner. So I like the raised look. I'm not going to use the MD Fab look, because then I probably need to install some kind of icon library, and I don't want to do that now. So let's go with this primary look for our Add to Do button. And what we'll do is we'll simply come to our app components to do, and then let's see here, where's our submit button, and it's down here. Let's start by putting it side by side and make sure that we can actually load our components before we try to implement some kind of logic. So if we refresh the browser now, or let's actually start our gulp process again. And just make sure that system.js doesn't throw any errors. Which it will probably do, because I always have some kind of issues with system.js, because we're not putting things in the right path and so forth. So we're probably going to need to figure some of this stuff out. And you guys will see how I do this. And as I guessed, or as I knew, we haven't actually even tried to load Angular 2 material. So we just have a simple button here that isn't styled at all. So what we'll probably need to do is import this component and pass it in as a directive to our to-do component. And the documentation really doesn't say anything about that, so that's pretty poor. But they don't have a demo docs yet, as they got for Angular 1 component, Angular 1 material. But since I know how Angular works, I can figure this out anyway. So let's come to our to-do.js. So we're gonna need to import something from, and we can see that it's called at Angular 2 material. So let's go with that, at Angular 2 material, and then we have a button. So let's start with that. Control space, and we can see that VS Code helped me here, and we can import the MD button. And we're also going to need to pass it to our directives here for our view template to be able to use it. So let's save this up, and let's see what happens in our browser. It refreshes, and as I was afraid of, we couldn't load button.js because it's not located in the following place. So let's take a look at how this is defined in index.html. Right, so we can see here that I'm actually specifying that my components are located under node modules, but we're not doing that when we copy pasted this in from their site. So let's try to skip most of these things. Like we already know, the default extension is JS because we've configured it up here. And let's also skip this main that tells the module loader which is the main file to load for this component, for this module. So let's try to define this in the same manner that we've defined all our other dependencies or modules. So this will be located under, it's almost the same path, but we're going to need to append node modules to it. Right. And let's also do the same thing for the checkbox and the button component. So this is going to be checkbox. Let's hope that we can load these modules now instead. So let's get rid of this. And now, hopefully if we come back to the browser, right, so it looks like now we're trying to load from node modules instead, but we don't look under button to find button.js and so forth. So let's just do a little cheat here. So I'm guessing we're gonna need to do it like this. So this is really ugly. I don't recommend this, but let's just bear with me for now, and hopefully we'll be able to load this button. Right, so let's come back to the browser, and yay, so we have an Angular 2 material component, more specifically the button component. So that's pretty cool. So we can see that we got the shading down here. It's really subtle, so we're gonna need to look really close. And let's see if they have any animations. Yeah, they do, but we don't have any ripples on the button, which I think there should be. But so this is still their first alpha release, so let's forgive them for now. So let's also try to use a checkbox. So let's come back to the documentations page and go to the checkbox instead. And here, so I always try to look for usage example code. I never read the details, not at first at least, but here we can see how to almost use it in the way that we want to use it in my application. So that's pretty cool. We have to-dos and we want to bind a checkbox to if it's complete or not. So let's take this code and just try to paste it into our to-do.html. So let's make this a little bit bigger. So up here we are iterating over the to-dos. So instead of an input, let's have this side by side as well, just to make sure that we load everything. And okay, so let's go with this. We're gonna change how we bind and listen to events later. And our properties name to text instead of, what was it? Name, right? So we have text here instead. But we're still binding to completed. And hopefully you can get rid of this index iterator here just to be able to click the label. So hopefully the Angular 2 material team has done this for us within this component. So let's save that up, and we know that this won't work because we're not passing it into our view. So just to make sure that that's the case, let's F5. And it doesn't really look like an MD component here, right? So let's come back to our to-do.ts and import the checkbox as well. So copy paste this button line here, but instead from the button module, let's get something from the checkbox module. We probably won't be able to find MD button there, so we're looking for MD checkbox. And we found it. So let's pass this into our directives array as well, save it up, and hopefully now if we switch to the browser, and yay, we can see that we have an MD component and checkbox MD component, which we can see that the binding's working as well when we're checking or is it? Right, at least this one's working, but when we're checking and unchecking that one, it ain't working. So this doesn't really matter. It could be that we are binding to it from two different components, hopefully. So we can just get rid of this input checkbox here. And the label as well, and now we can get rid of this index iterator, because it looked like when let's refresh this, when we press the label, we actually checked the checkbox, and that was what all that code was for. So we've actually managed to simplify our code here by using Angular to Material instead. Right, cool. So let's see if we can add a couple of more to-dos and check them. Looks good, and let's complete them all. Let's uncheck them. So this seems to work. So that's the checkbox component. All right, let's hook up this button as well and remove this other button. And let's just take the type submit and the disabled binding and put it onto our material button instead. Let's take the text there as well, save it up, and get rid of the old button. Come back and make sure that it works. So let's hope that it's disabled, and it is. And when we type something valid, it gets enabled, and we can add it to do. So far this looks pretty good. So we've actually managed to integrate two components in a very short time. All right, so let's see if we have time to look at something else. Let's see here. You can navigate back, and let's actually skip the toolbar and side nav, so we can do that in a separate screencast. But let's take a look at least how the progress circle works, so you guys can see if it's something useful or how it looks at least. So let's not try to hook this up because we don't have anything that requires a progress bar in our ng2 repo so far. But let's just install this dependency and take a look at how it looks. So I'm just going to take this sample code right here and paste it in. Let's do it at the bottom. And now we're going to need to install it, just like we installed all our other components. So what was it called now again? Progress cycle, right? So let's copy paste that. And we're gonna need to come to our index.html and do this same ugly stuff for our progress cycle instead. Right, so now we can come to our todo.ts, do the same thing again. Let's see what we can find. So we don't have any suggestions. Let's take a look at what they should be named. It's probably progress circle and spinner. So MD spinner, MD progress circle. So hopefully Visual Studio Code will catch up with this. So we can't navigate through code, so that's not that promising at all, really. So let's take a look if we have any errors. So it says that progress circle doesn't have a member exported. No, so right, that's fine. It looks like we compiled after the first error here. So let's take a look in our app. So it doesn't look like we are actually seeing any progress circles down here. So something isn't working. Let's try to figure out what's going on here. Yeah, so I forgot to pass them to the directives. Let's hope that was it. Let's take these two guys, pass it down to the array. So let's save that up, come back. So let's see now if we see progress cycles, and it looks like it's working. So this is what it looks like. Cool. So let's see, do I have any other examples? Yes, we can theme them as well. Let's throw that into our todo.html. Save it up. And this value here, I'm guessing we can go like 79%, and we'll get a circle that's 79% complete. Let's see if I'm right. Refresh this guy. Yeah, so this looks like 79% or something like that. And we have a couple of spinners here. So it seems to work. So we down at the bottom we have the 3 different themes: primary, accent, and worn, and different kind of spinners up here. I don't actually know what the difference is. Looks like they are spinning at different frequencies. Right. So the mode is determinate or indeterminate, and we have this. And we have the spinner at the bottom, which just spins. Right, so the determinate takes the value, the indeterminate doesn't take a value, and the spinner just spins forever. It's not bound to any kind of percentage that we can control. So that looks pretty cool. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. I hope you guys enjoyed the screencast, and if you like what you see, make sure to subscribe and spread the word. And hopefully we'll see each other next week again. Until next time, have a nice day, guys.